Untrodden Peaks and Unfrequented Valleys. Section 33. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Untrodden Peaks and Unfrequented Valleys, A Midsummer Ramble Through the Dolomites by Amelia B. Edwards. Chapter 13. Forno di Zoldo and Zopppe, Part 3. That evening, when we are at supper, Giuseppe comes up to say that the young sculptor is below, having brought the bust over from Bragarezza, to know if I will make him an offer for it. Having brought the bust over? I picture him toiling with it along the dusty road. I see him as I saw him this morning, pale, anxious-looking, out at elbows, and for the moment I feel as if it were my fate to yield and buy. Seeing me waver, L. pronounces me a dangerous lunatic, and even Giuseppe ventures respectfully to represent that if the Signor were really to purchase the testa di legno, we should in future require an extra mule to carry it. So, not daring to see him, lest I should commit the foolish deed, I send down a polite refusal, and hear of the poor fellow no more. We are off again next morning by 5:30, thankful to see the last of Forno di Zoldo, with its filthy inn, its forges, and its noisy iron trade. Far down by the torrent side, in the steep hollow below the village, there may be seen long rows of workshops, whence the smoke of many fires is always rising. Here the men of Zoldo, who are for the most part blacksmiths, have made nails from time immemorial, sending their goods down on mule-back to Longarone, and getting up in the same way stores of old iron from Ceneda, Conegliano, and even Venice. We are returning today to Caprile by a pass leading from the head of the Val di Zoldo into the head of the Val Fiorentino, winding round the foot of the Pelmo between that mountain and the Monte Croce. For the first 4 hours of the journey we are simply retracing our route of the day before yesterday. A little beyond Dont, whence there is an easy and interesting way to Agordo by the Val d'Urum, the Pelmo rises up, pale and shadowy and most majestical, while at San Nicolo the Civita comes into sight again, half hidden in rolling silvery mists. Beyond Marazzone, about half-way between that village and Pico, the road divides, and we turn off from the Val di Zoldo up a long, grassy, undulating valley lying between the Pelmo, the Monte Croce, and the back of the Monte Fernazza. This valley, known as the Valley of Palafavera, is the common property of the communes of Marazzone and Pical, who divide the pastures equally. Between the Monte Croce, a small but finely shaped pyramidal mountain, and the Pelmo, which from here looks like a cloudy Tower of Babel, there rises a long green slope leading to the top of the pass. Here, in the shade of a big tree on a grassy knoll, we call our first halt. The saddles are taken off, and serve for chairs. A running spring close by among the bushes supplies us with clear water, and Clementi again fetches cream from a milk farm a little farther on. So, sitting in the open air, under the bluest of blue skies, eating cream with wooden spoons out of a wooden bowl, we take our rest in as purely pastoral a fashion as the heart of even the fair Scudery could have desired. The journey today is a long one, and it will be necessary to let the mules rest again by and by. So we presently go on again, and about midday reach the top of the pass, which is called by some the Passo di Palafavera, and by others the Forcella Staulanza. Hence the path winds down among scattered pines and larches to the very base of the Pelmo. At first the great Dolomite shows as only one stupendous tower. Then the second tower, till now hidden behind the first, comes gradually into sight. Lastly they divide, showing a dip of blue sky between. Every turn of the path now brings us nearer, so that the huge mass, rising ledge above ledge, steep above steep, seems to hang above our heads and shut out half the sky. And now, being within 200 feet of the base of the mountain, we realize, as nearly as it is possible to do so without attempting any part of the ascent, its amazing size, steepness, and difficulty. We are so near that a chamois hunter could hardly creep unseen along one of the narrow ledges 3,000 or 4,000 feet above, and yet the extent of the whole is so enormous that a woman following a path leading across yonder slope of debris looks a mere speck against the rock. The Pelmo blocks the whole end of the Val Fiorentino. The path leading over the low ridge just opposite is the Forcella Forata, 6,896 feet, leading directly to San Vito at the foot of the Antelao in the Val d'Ampezzo. It corresponds in position to the Forcella Staulanza, over which we have just come from the foot of the Civita in Val di Zoldo. The height of the Pelmo, so far as has yet been ascertained, appears to be 10,377 feet. That is to say, it is within a few feet the same as that of the Civita, and scarcely 200 feet below the summit of the Antelao. The mountain has been repeatedly ascended by the daring chamois hunters of Val di Zoldo, who have discovered 4 separate ways by which to reach the plateau on the top. It has also been ascended by Fuchs, and by the author of the Guide to the Eastern Alps, who took it from the Borca side, above the Val Najarone. The 2 best routes, however, are supposed to be those from either Zopppe or just above San Nicolo in the Val di Zoldo. Mr. Bell describes the Pelmo as a gigantic fortress of the most massive architecture, defended by huge bastioned outworks whose walls in many places fall in sheer precipices for more than 2,000 feet. He furthermore says, the likeness to masonry is much increased by the fact that in great part the strata lie in nearly horizontal courses, whence it happens that many of the steepest parts of the mountain are traversed by ledges wide enough to give passage to chamois and their pursuers. From the Forcella Staulanza, the Monte Rochetta of Val d'Ampezzo and the jagged ridge of the Bec de Mezzotti are visible above the slopes of the Forcella Forata. The topmost peak of the Civita also peers out above the fir woods bordering on the eastern face of Monte Croce, and far away, beyond the sunny vista of the Val Fiorentino, the faint blue peak of the Marmolata is seen against the horizon, its snow slope outlined in frosted silver. And now, following the course of the infant Fiorentino torrent, we begin to leave the Pelmo behind at every step. One by one the villages of Pescul and Selva, the Col de Santa Lucia, the Monte Frisolet, the Sasso Bianco come into view. Stopping for a few moments at Pescul, we go into the little church to see a carved tabernacle by Bruzzoltollon, a tiny, toy-like thing, evidently a recollection of the baldacchino at St. Peter's, supported on flowery, twisted columns, crowned by an elaborate canopy, and enclosing a crucifixion group with figures about 3 inches in height. Some of the little angels and cherubs clustered outside the canopy are so tenderly conceived and executed as to remind one of the designs of Luca della Robbia. The people of Pescul prize their little shrine, just as the people of Zopppe prize their Titian, and have refused large prices for it. It is now 1 o'clock, and we have been upon the road since 5:30 a.m. The mules are tired out, and stumble at every step. The Val Fiorentino stretches out interminably, and the village of Selva, where we are to rest for a good 2 hours, seems never to draw nearer. We get there at last, however, and put up at a small roadside albergo, as rough as any we have yet been into, but very clean and airy. Here the tired mules get each a hearty feed of Indian corn, the men bread and wine, and we, being shown into a whitewashed upstairs room, proceed to light the Etna and brew a dish of Liebig. The women of the house, and there are 4 of them, pursue us to this retreat as soon as they have served out the corn and wine below, and stand wide-eyed and open-mouthed, in a fever of curiosity, watching all we do as a party of children might watch the movements of a couple of wild beasts in a cage. They examine our hats, our umbrellas, our cloaks, and every individual article that we have laid aside. The Etna stupefies them with amazement. As for L's field-glass lying in the window, they eye it askance, taking it evidently for some kind of infernal machine that may be expected to go off suddenly and blow up the whole establishment. They are in truth mere savages, rosy, hardy, good-natured, but as ignorant and uncivilized as aboriginal Australians. The biggest and rosiest of the four, apparently the mistress of the house, emerging presently from the first dumbness of her astonishment, pours forth a volley of questions, repeating my answers with a triumphant air as if interpreting them to the rest, and cross-examining me as eagerly and unsparingly as an Old Bailey counsel. Where did we come from? From Forno di Zoldo. Si, she knew that. The men downstairs had told her so much. But before Forno di Zoldo. Where did we come from before Forno di Zoldo? From Caprile. Che, she knows that also. But before Caprile? Surely we came from far away, from Lontana? Poor Insempio! Where were we born? In Inglaterra, Madonna! In Inglaterra! Here she throws up her hands, and the other three do the same. But have you come like this, all the way from Inglaterra? What she means by like this, it is impossible to say. She probably supposes we have ridden the two Nessels the whole distance by land and sea, with one small black bag each by way of luggage, but the easiest answer is a nod of the head. Santo Spirito! And alone? All alone? Again, to save explanations, a nod. Poverine, poverine. Poor little things, are you sisters? A shake of the head this time, instead of a nod. Are you married? Another negative, whereat her surprise amounts to almost consternation. Come, not married, neither of you? Neither of us, I reply, laughing. Gran Dio! Alone and not married. Poverine, poverine. Hereupon they all cry poverine in chorus, with an air of such genuine concern and compassion that we are almost ashamed of the irrepressible laughter with which we cannot help receiving their condolences. Being really tired and in want of rest, I am obliged at last to dismiss both Coryphaeus and Chorus, and when they are fairly gone, to lock them out. So at last we eat our Liebig in peace, and being only 2 hours from home, with plenty of daylight still at our disposal, the writer succeeds in getting a sketch of the Pelmo as it appears through the open window, down at the far end of the valley. The rest of the journey lies chiefly along the rising verge of Monte Frisolet, passing over the Col di Santa Lucia. A little beyond Selva we enter upon Austrian territory, leaving it again on the hillside above Caprile, and reaching home by way of the old familiar zigzag a little after 6 p.m. End of section 33.